Am I a gamer? Are you a gamer? Is anybody that you know a gamer? Has your father ever told you he's proud of you without crossing his fingers behind his back, that you were able to view via a reflection that the probability he was aware of you being able to see him being astronomically high? All of these questions and more are important. I know what's swimming across all of your minds right now, players. Isn't this a Spider-Man PS5 review? How is this important? Is Comic Concept currently faded off that Zaza pack? Well, the answers to all of that and more is a resounding sure. Am I a Spider-Man fan? Yeah! Are you a fan of Spider-Man?
Of course.
And are you a regular ass mofo who has responsibilities and maybe doesn't get the chance to play all the latest games or has time to play every new astonishing game that comes out? More or less, right? Have you ever made the cardinal sin of setting God of War to God of War mode on your first playthrough, and now after you get out of work and are trying to unwind, you have to continuously get your ass whooped until you finally realize you have to go back to sleep for work? The reason behind me saying all of this is that if this even remotely resembles you, then if you got Spider-Man 2, regardless of its flaws, you probably loved it. I know I did. I pre-ordered the game on the 16th, not for any of those dog water ass suits that they'll eventually toss out for free anyway, but for the extra skill points, and by midnight on the 20th, I was back in Insomniac's world of Spider-Man, and I couldn't be happier. I usually stick to a mix of, Elden Ring, UFC 4, and had just recently got Return to Arkham, and was finally getting to play Arkham Asylum after starting the whole Arkham franchise with Arkham City back in 2010, the best of the Arkham series, okay? And the very first Sandman mission was Insomniac flexing all that they had been refining for the years at an exclamation point on what to expect from the rest of the game. We were able to test the new dynamic swinging. Ever since I played Spider-Man Miles Morales, the swinging was so good, I just couldn't go back to Spider-Man Remastered. It was so dynamic, just the way the camera moved, the speed, and the hang time. It just felt like Miles was having more fun with the animations, plus his Venom jump and dash for traversal mechanics was such a good way to keep the gameplay momentum going, so I'm glad they gave Peter an avenue to do the same in this one. They made it a huge deal to use the web wings in this mission, and they did not disappoint. I was excited because this was probably one of the only other things besides a Batmobile, which they incorporated way too much in the Arkham Knight missions. It ruined the game for me. Arkham City supremacy, but Batman had those wings over Spider-Man. Now that's not the case. I was also a bit worried because I heard that the gliding was so fun that people were saying they were gliding way more than they were web swinging. And after playing the game,
Survey says
that was a lie. I actually use both pretty evenly. It's great for when you're in a bad area for swinging and or you're losing momentum in a jump. The wind tunnels were also a very nice way to again maintain momentum that you could easily translate to a swing. Also, fast travel in this game is insane. It's almost instantaneous, okay? The PS5, for the lack of a better term, really lets its nuts hang with this feature. But even with that, the improvements to the web swinging and the tricks make the swinging still very worthwhile, and so it's much more of a complementary relationship. Also, whoever came up with the skidding on water thing deserves some credit. As far as the actual combat mechanics of the game, they've added a decent amount of new animations, new moves like how you can swing your enemies in which direction, new finisher animations, and my personal favorite of literally bouncing them off the floor. Ball is life. They also got rid of the gadget wheel, which I'm okay with because I feel the wheel always being visible is more efficient and accessible along with this new power wheel. Plus they added this like parry mechanic for certain enemies, which is really fun. Overall, I do think not much has changed in this department. Power wheel also can make it feel a little too easy at times. So as a regular ass mofo, the only other thing I would actually like to see is maybe more criminal activity missions taking place in the air. There was some missions where you have to use the web wings to download information from one of Kraven's birds, and those were pretty fun, but after you beat them all, there's no more. So I would hope they would do something with the New Game Plus so that we can get those back, or at least, update it so we had more things to do post-game. But overall, it's Spider-Man, bare bones, he's webs, he's fists, he's kicks. They added gadgets and Venom powers to him, so although there is an apparent lack of innovation, I'd be curious what more they realistically could do. How much more do you add to the game before it starts to not feel like Spider-Man? And what does he need? A web shield? A sword? Again, speaking as someone who has not the faintest clue about game development, if any players have any interesting ideas, I would love to hear that. So more of the same stuff, but still still super fun. The extracurricular options like hunter bases for some stealth play, the prowler stashes, some of the bird mech web wing challenges were fun. There was even something alluding to Chameleon, Kraven's brother, and the Mysterium challenges were dope too. There was even a make a grown man cry type mission following up with Howard from the first game and helping his birds migrate, only to come back and Howard not being there any longer. But my favorite would have to be the Cult of the Flame, as that seems to be setting up Carnage for the DLC for this game, and I can totally see an absolute Carnage pack coming through. Also, I believe Daredevil might be in the mix for some DLC. What with how much they seem to have his name in their mouths, I'm basically expecting it at this point, and if it's anything like Spider-Man 2018, it'll drop in December, I'm hoping. One of my issues though is that after you beat the game, you can't repeat any of the hunter bases. The only thing you can continually do is the Mysterium challenges, but you can only go in as Miles. So hopefully they change that in New Game Plus, and how New Game Plus is not ready already is beyond me. Before we get into the main course or the story, we will talk about everyone's favorite
New suits.
I gotta say, I wish we had kept a lot more suits from the previous games. I would have traded all the pre-order suits for just the Cyborg Spider-Man suit or Miles Winter suit. I like Noir as much as the next guy, but can I get a Peter B. Parker in here? I initially thought they'd port all the previous suits into this game again, but when do I ever get what I want? I love that we finally got the No Way Home suit and we're able to kind of like pseudo see it in action in anticipation for Spider-Man 4, which I'm gonna need already. All the symbiote suits carry. I love how they incorporated the Absolute Carnage suit for Miles as well. Let him get in a bit on the symbiote fun. All the movie suits were cool, and these are my personal favorite from each Spider-Man. As far as Wolverine goes, I think we're in good hands. So after the whole Sandman battle, we see the story's main antagonist, Kraven, take his sights to New York to embark on a new hunt in a different jungle with stranger animals. This was just another day at school for Miles, but this was Peter's first and last day as a teacher, because realistically, how many times can you help your boy out in the bathroom before somebody calls you out on it? I really like this because it highlights how impossible it is to be Spider-Man in the real world. From the very jump, when MJ enters the picture, she's also at risk of being fired from the Bugle unless she writes a front page worthy story. So they're both kind of in this weird spot, while at May's house in Queens, we get treated to a nice little flashback of May teaching Peter a lesson about balance and how it's a process, which was very nice to see May again. And although I think he was probably left out for reasons because it might have derailed the momentum of the story and might have even been out of place, but I think it would have been nice to see Uncle Ben here. This is when Harry comes in and surprises them, and he reveals all that has been going on with him about not actually being in Europe and about his ailment, except he's happy to say it looks like he's in remission. So we're treated to our next high as we take a literal trip down memory lane, and Harry and Peter ride bikes, have a good hide and seek flashback caper, which also ends with that day being the day Harry's mom died. Whole interaction culminating in Harry offering Peter a job to work with him at the Emily May Foundation in honor of both the special women in their lives. So not only is his best friend back in the picture, he also started a philanthropic organization that aims to use science to heal the world and is offering him a job where they would work together to do so. And my friends can't even acknowledge the dankness of the 48 memes I send them daily. The cherry on top is that upon a little Coney Island adventure that was interrupted by Kraven's goons, we find out that Harry has powers too, so now they can save the world twofold as best friends. So this obviously leaves Miles feeling kind of isolated from Peter, as throughout the game he's dealing with his mother starting to date again, dealing with the anger and yearning for revenge against the man who was responsible for his father's death being on the loose, and the conflict of wanting that revenge but also being Spider-Man, and that meaning having a higher moral code. As the distance between Miles and Peter grows wider, Harry's powers grow stronger, enough so that he accompanies Peter on a mission to save Tombstone from the Hunters. Kraven already killed Scorpion with the quickness to establish how serious he is as an antagonist, and so they want to stop him from picking off any more villains. This was so fun. Like, we've had these missions before with Peter and Miles, but it's such a different dynamic with Harry. Even though Harry's new to powers, it's not really a mentor type relationship with these two. You know, it's two best friends kicking ass, and Harry comes through with the Agent Venom drip, which was the beginning, I would say, of the liberties Insomniac is taking in this game, and one of the first times we see the symbiote yearning for Peter. So with that, Connors gets kidnapped. Kraven wants to turn him into the lizard so he can have a nice big hunt, and we get treated to everyone's favorite, an MJ mission. Admittedly, they significantly powered her up with that taser, which was kind of silly and weird, but I found the MJ missions to be more tolerable and more enjoyable this time around. But when Peter and Harry do come through, Peter gets stabbed. In order to save his life, the symbiote latches onto him, and we finally get the symbiote suit, and the symbiote surge went off in this sequence. Connors gets away, so that concludes our first act, which I have to say was really promising and strong, with the different relationship dynamics, solid motivations, solid seeds planted for our characters, and the plot being quite sound, as well as a good build-up for our villain. The second act, we see the suit favor Peter, which sows the first seeds of resentment between the two friends, which will be watered throughout this section of the story. With the suit off of Harry, his ailment will soon return, so they're kind of fighting against the clock unless they find Connors, who designed the suit. So we get to see Peter nab the serum from Craven. Craven analyzes the suit's weakness of sound and gets to show off some pretty impressive strength, again highlighting the problem this man can and will be. Mr. Lowenthal was on some next level acting here, and we see the hunters follow Peter back to the Emily May Foundation after getting the cure ready, and they completely destroy it, okay? Something that hits Harry a bit more than Peter, as we next see the lizard hunt and sequence that we saw released earlier this year in May, which looked awesome and I can confirm was even more fun to play. We see the way the suit is changing Peter, and after giving Connors the antidote, we see our next liberty, which is Insomniac telling us that the symbiote, which was discovered years ago, was what caused Connors to lose his arm, which in the comics, I believe it was injured during a war and then amputated. I feel like that was Insomniac's way of tying everything into the main story. Personally, I thought it was unnecessary, but I don't think it changes the character of the lizard all that much, if any, so I'm chilling with this change. And from here, the suit changes form, and so it does to Peter's mind, and he's locked in on not parting ways with it, with the excuse of it makes him a better Spider-Man. And at this moment, I was like, yo, Harry is not getting that suit back, okay? So we're seeing the bond really take hold here, and moments later, after another MJ stealther versus Craven's goons, we see the suit take the wheel and the monster become unleashed, where it's taking complete control over an unconscious Peter and even goes after MJ, which this whole train tunnel sequence was genuinely terrifying, with Peter waking up none the wiser, but seeing a rather unpleasant article written about Spider-Man, and upon visiting Harry and MJ confronting him about his recent behavior, he lashes out, and this causes a serious rift between all of them as he is sinking deeper into the symbiote's control. And the whole element of the suit saving Peter's life and also Harry is so nicely intertwined and layered. Miles at this point had been captured and is forced to fight to death with Martin Lee, and could have potentially killed this man to exact his revenge, but chose to let go of that because it wasn't serving him. This was such a Spider-Man moment of like doing the right thing against everything telling you to drop your code and do the thing you want. Miles is a better man than me, is all I gotta say, as he knocks Lee out of the arena to get help from Spider-Man. Peter finally comes to blows with Craven.
Pause, sir.
Over now.
Pause, sir. 10-4.
Free Miles, but with the symbiote, Peter's choice to drop the code was not entirely his own, so Miles intervenes before the symbiote could compel Peter to kill Craven, and we get a pretty personal battle between these two Spider-Men. All of Peter's insecurities and inadequacies come pouring out, with this culminating in Miles bringing Peter out of this and giving him the strength to rip the symbiote off of himself finally. Love this sequence from them, just proving how worthy a successor Miles will be, concluding the second act very strongly, I would say, and it is with the third act where I feel things kind of fall off a little bit, at least for me. Third act begins with Peter refusing to give Harry the symbiote back because, well, he knows it's an alien now and he knows what it can do to a person, and Harry, not knowing anything other than he will die without it, is not having it, so he fights back on it, and the symbiote breaks its confinement and latches onto Harry, and all the anger and vitriol that the symbiote had in it gives birth to Venom, which we get to play as Venom here. This sequence was so damn fun, just mowing down Oscorp guards. I really need to play as Venom again, Insomniac, please. Venom breaks out of Oscorp, confronts Craven, and bites his fucking head off. Very gnarly stuff, and this was all well and good, and after that, I think that's when the game started feeling like it was getting less personal and started going over the top with Harry's version of healing the world being corrupted by the symbiote as to turn everyone else into symbiotes. We get some, I'd say, pretty therapeutic sequences with Harry turning MJ and her and Peter confronting each other about their relationship issues. They also turned her into Scream, which I felt again was an odd and unnecessary move. Like, you could have just had her be MJ with the symbiote and made her character model unique, but otherwise it was still cathartic and I enjoyed the back and forth. We see Miles and Lee, who's basically in Miles's debt, takes a trip into Peter's subconscious to save him from the symbiote, and although Miles admits he won't forgive Lee, we get to see Miles get some closure from Martin Lee as he gives all of his powers to this. It gives birth to Anti-Venom here, which was again a very dope suit, and Martin Lee looks like he's gonna turn a corner and become the man he once was. Venom is trying to create Planet Symbiote, and the only way to stop him is to get the Null Rock to the accelerator to destroy it, and they are able to do that after a very intense and fun battle. Lots of good tension and action, and I love how they paid homage to Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman's work from 2018 Venom. Highly recommend that run. I am okay with and actually like how they changed things up and made Harry Venom instead of like Eddie Brock. That has always been like a welcome take in media outside the comics, but I feel like the character of Venom was really not serviced too well here. He felt a bit one-dimensional, if I'm being honest. Miles also makes this suit for himself, which ended up being an Adidas promotion. With them destroying the fragment, the symbiote hives disappear and they're able to resuscitate Harry, but he does end up in a coma, and this drives Norman mad, and he alludes to a G serum, something I know all too well. But the Goblin is coming, guys, rest assured, and I can't wait. The story ends with Peter taking a break and Miles assuring him that he's got this as the new main Spider-Man, and it made sense, and I don't think it was necessarily bad, but I think that the story just dramatically changes in the third act from what it was the whole game into something else almost. But overall, I think it was handled well. I think it was a good story, and it ended well with some very ambitious choices that prevented it from being, I would say, great. I'll say that I think the biggest improvements are in the traversal because it's amazing fun. The story's third act felt noticeably weaker than the first two acts, but it's overall still pretty good. We need a daytime changer, bring in the suits from the previous games, open up the Mysterium to Peter with New Game Plus, and have the Hunter bases still available. And as far as combat goes, can we get more aerial criminal activity? More time playing as Venom also. We are also going to need the release date on that DLC. The game doesn't reinvent the wheel, but for gamers and fans of Spider-Man alike, it gets the job done for a Spider-Man game. Even at its hardest difficulty, it's not a burn to play, and the combat and traversal only add to the entertainment and immersion of this world. That's why I am giving Marvel Spider-Man 2 a fluctuating 8 to 8.5, but let me know what y'all thought of the game if you've already played it, and if you haven't, why are you still watching this? That's it. If you liked the video, leave me a thumbs up, comment down below, and if you want, subscribe. I always appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope all of you guys are well, and I will see you in the next one.